I'm in awe of Sabur. I'm in awe of what he did when I was there. He was an interpreter. He was far more than that. He was our advisor, and not just for me, but for hundreds and hundreds of U.S. and NATO troops that came through where he worked. He poured himself into the mission. He was indispensable. Nothing happened without the man that you're looking at on the screen. For Americans and our mission in Afghanistan. We could not have accomplished what we did without Sabur and Habib and other men and women like that. And what we're doing right now as we close those gates is we are closing the door on their hopes and their dreams and on that belief that America would be there for them when they needed us the most.
That was Pete Hegseth. He said those things in 2021. He's now, of course, the country's defense secretary. But in that interview, he was speaking about a hero, an American hero, Afghan translator Sabur Shahzada. Hegseth was on Fox News, and he was advocating for his friends to get help for his translator and his family and to get them out of harm's way as the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan. Joining our conversation now is host of the Independent Americans podcast, founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff's here. Michelle's still with us. Paul, you were name-checked by the senator for your important work in advocating for these heroes, these people who helped keep men and women, Americans, alive. Your thoughts about this story that the senators helped draw attention to and that I'm sure you're working behind the scenes on?
Nicole, in my over 20 years in the veterans and national security space, I've never seen an issue that unites our community more than this one. I mean, you've got Pete Hegseth and Blumenthal agree that betraying our allies is awful. It's outrageous. It's un-American. It's bad for our national security. It's bad for our allies. But there's another really important part of this. This violates a sacred compact with our veterans. Veterans are experiencing some deep moral trauma when they hear that the people that they promised that we would keep safe, that our government promised we would keep safe, people who died for us, people who were wounded, people who took bullets for us, are now being hung out to dry, and even worse, they're being dragged off of our streets in the way the Taliban did it in Afghanistan. I've got two Iraqi interpreters that live in America now, Isam and Mohammed, who are shining examples of what can happen. We got them out, and they're here, and they're thriving. Another one of my interpreters, Sid, is still in Iraq, and I don't know how he's doing. But we are betraying not just our allies in Iraq and Afghanistan, but our allies around the world. And we're in such deep conflict with our American values that I hope this sends a shock across all parties and all Americans to understand that this is not what we do in America. And it's got veterans outraged. It's got our allies hanging out to dry, and it's got our enemies celebrating. If this is what you do to your allies, Putin, the North Koreans, everyone else are celebrating this moment in American history.
Well, Paul, what is the status and what is the prospect for helping and protecting these folks from the mass deportation program that Trump is implementing?
Like everything else, it's in flux, and we're now hearing about at least, I think, 2 or 3 Afghan interpreters who've been dragged off the streets by masked American agents, right? ICE agents. It's so demented because it's exactly the kind of stuff we fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now to see that kind of authoritarian ridiculousness happening here at home is really infuriating, but it's also unifying because veterans are now working together. Sean Van Diver, who the senator mentioned, and countless other folks across the veterans community have created kind of an underground railroad over the last 20 years for our Iraqi and Afghan allies, and they are uniting. And now American veterans are being paired with these Afghan allies to be kind of bodyguards, to be watchdogs, to say, if you're going to be in this situation, I'm going to be standing next to you. I will be your voice. So this is going to be a really important galvanizing organizing moment, not just for the veterans community, but I think for all Americans. And veterans are going to lead the way. We're going to stand with our brothers and sisters who saved our lives, even if that includes standing up to ICE agents and pushing to change these ridiculous policies that are hurting us all.
I mean, Michelle, it's certainly, cross-pressure isn't the right word, but it certainly pressures Donald Trump in an area where he likes to think he does a decent job. We know that's not true. He does a terrible job for the men and women of the military, for U.S. national security, and in terms of keeping the faith with our allies, but a real test as to whether or not they can walk and chew gum, as well as a test of Pete Hegseth's sort of moxie and power in the cabinet. Can he help these folks?
I think they've already failed that test. You know, he says he cares about veterans, but look what's happened in the so-called big, beautiful bill and the cuts that they've made to veteran services. They claim to care about police officers, and look at the way that they pardoned all those J6 folks that were involved in January 6th in the marauding of the Capitol without thought to the police officers that were either killed or hurt or still suffering because of what happened there. I mean, our friend Paul just said that this doesn't happen in America. I think we have to acknowledge that it does. It does happen. It is happening.
Yeah.
And in this case, it happened to someone who was absolutely following everything that he should be doing. He was picked up while he was at a biometrics appointment, which was required for his green card. He had a special immigrant visa, S1V, SIV, so that he was on the path to doing this the right way. And he's someone who protected Americans. There are Americans who are alive today who are going to go home and have dinner with their families because of the work the interpreters like this did. And I am so glad to hear that the veterans are standing up to support them. I think you're probably going to see confrontations like where clergy are actually accompanying some of the immigrants who are showing up for their immigration hearings. And it will be interesting when that happens if the veterans are basically standing toe-to-toe with ICE agents. I don't think that's going to be very easy for ICE agents to comfortably carry out those deportations. I'm so glad, though, that you began this with Pete Hegseth and his words, because I think that was the true Pete Hegseth. I think he actually does care about these interpreters, and he is actually marching to orders that he probably is not comfortable with. And maybe we can take a little bit of comfort in that and knowing that somewhere deep down inside, he knows how important these people are, how important they were to the men and women who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that they deserve better than they're getting right now.